Hello there everyone, I'm Christina of CSL Designs, and in today's tutorial I'm going to show you how to make this flat beaded Kumihimo necklace. And this is what it looks like. So what we have is basically one long flat Kumihimo braid. Finished them off with those ribbon ends there. Then right there in the middle of the braid we have this beaded section. So I've created a beaded section to create the curve in the necklace, but also then along with adding the beads we have these two separate braids on either side. So that's what the necklace looks like. So if you want to learn how to make it, then keep watching. So these are the materials that we're going to use. First of all, here I'm using my square Kumihimo disc because it's a flat braid that we're making. And then the cord I'm using is this 1mm satin cord. So this is what I'm using here. You can use other kinds, just be aware that it might give you a different result. Now the beads that I'm using here are both silver coated hematite gemstone rounds. The first ones are 6mm rounds. So the small ones, and then here the larger ones are actually 8mm rounds. And it's using the combination of these two sizes that's going to give us the curve to lie nicely on the neckline. And then to finish it off with, I'm using these ribbon ends here, just to finish the ends of the braid, and then to them I'm going to attach my findings. So my extended chain and my lotto claw clasp using those jump rings. So let's get it all together and let's get started. And then the length of cord that we're going to need is 12 separate lengths here of about 1 meter and 25 centimeters each. And then on one end here I've just made them all even and then tied a regular overhand knot to hold them all together. So I then took that knot on one end of the cords and then put it down through the hole in the center of the disc. So it's coming out towards the back there. And that's also where the braid is going to be coming out. What you can do is attach a weight to this if you prefer working with that. And then I've distributed the cords like this. So I've just put 6 lengths of cord in the middle 6 slots there on the top side of the disc, and then 6 lengths of cord in the middle 6 slots on the bottom. So we just have equal opposite each other. And then what we need to do first of all is one side of the necklace. So I'm just going to show you the basic braid structure for that. So it's just a flat braid that we're making. So I'm going to start from the top, and we have 2 cords right there in the middle. So I'm going to take the right one of those 2 middle ones on the top and bring it out towards the left and just place it in that slot straight up to the left side. And then I'm going to take the left one of those 2 middle ones on the top and bring it out towards the right. So that's now straight opposite the other one we brought to the side. So what we have now are these gaps on the top side of the disc. So we need to fill them in and start moving the top and the bottom cords here. So imagine that you have a line going straight down the center. So you're kind of going to have 2 sides, the left side of the disc and the right side of the disc. We're going to start with one at a time, but then do the same on both, but always in a mirrored image. So I'm just going to start on my left side of the disc here. So I take out of those 2 middle cords on the bottom, I take the left one, and then I bring that up and place it into the left slot of those 2 empty ones on the top. So like that, I'm filling in the one that was freed up before. Then I move one slot out towards the left, release that one, bring that down into the now empty slot on the bottom there that was freed up from the previous movement. And then I move one slot out again towards the left and bring that up into the empty slot on the top that was freed from the previous movement. And then move out to the last one on the top side there. Bring that down into the empty slot on the bottom. And the last one on the bottom side goes up into that slot on the top. So that was now the one side of the disc. So that means everything that we just done we have to repeat on the right side here. So again, starting from the bottom, because you can see we have the gap still on the top. So I take the right one out of the 2 middle ones on the bottom here and bring that up and place it into that empty slot. Move one step to the right and bring that down into the empty slot on the bottom. And again, move each cord one at a time into the slot that's freed up from the previous movement until you used the very last one there and brought that up to the top. So now what we have is we've moved all the cords on the top and the bottom here. So what we need to do now is actually reincorporate these cords on the side back into the braid. So all I'm going to do with that is do one side at a time. It doesn't matter which one you start with. I'm just going to do the left one. And then as I'm doing this, I'm going to move it down to the slot here on the bottom, because you can see right now it's a slot on either side there on the bottom that's empty. But before I move it there, what I need to do is I'm holding on to the cord and kind of pulling at it, but then pushing against the cords in the middle and then bringing it down. And the same thing on the other side, just pull at it gently and then push against the cords in the middle. And it just tightens up the braid nicely and makes it more even throughout. So I do that with every round as well. So that's one full round of this structure. So then just to show you again, out of those two middle ones on the top, I take the right one, release that and then bring it out to the left. And then I take the left one of the two middle ones and bring it out to the right. So out to opposite sides to where you're taking them from. Then we need to move the top and the bottom ones. So again, remember, because we have the space on the top, we need to release the one on the bottom first to bring into the top slot. Like that. Start on one side at a time, and just each time you've moved one, move to the cord that's in the next slot out towards the side until you've used all of them, just like that. Then the same on the other side in a mirrored image, basically fill in the gaps where we have empty slots using each one, and the very last one here. And then same as before, we now need to move the ones on the side back into the braid. So that means I'm releasing one at a time and just grabbing hold of it and pulling a little bit at it while pushing against the cord in the middle. You can start to see that they kind of come together nicely. It pushes them tighter together, which is going to make for a neater braid. Same on the other side. Make sure, if you're doing this, remember to do it every single time. Otherwise, the braid will become quite uneven. So what you want to do now is keep repeating this. This was another full round of the braid. So keep doing this until you have the length on the side of the necklace that you want. So now I kept making my braid, and what I've ended up with on the other side is my length of the flat braid. Now this is about 23 centimeters long for me. Now if you want your necklace to be a different size, so obviously shorter or longer, then this is kind of the part that you want to adjust, so the sides of the necklace. So if you want a shorter or smaller necklace, you can make this length shorter, or you can make it longer if you want a larger necklace. And obviously repeat the same length once we get to the other side as well. But now that we made that side, we've reached the point there where we need to make the mid part of the necklace. So now we need to start separating our braids here. So what that means is it's more or less the same technique, but it's really just the two middle ones on the top there that we moved first that needs to be different. So instead of taking the right one out of those two middle ones and moving it to the left side, I'm going to actually take the left one and move that to the left side. Just like that. And then I'm going to take the right one and move that to the right side. So we've now stuck with the side that they're coming from. And the reason that we're doing this is because that's how we're going to create the two separate braids on the side. Instead of crossing them over in the middle there, that's what creates the full braid that we have on the side there. So that's the first step, and otherwise it's really just the same for now. So I take the bottom one there, bring that up, and then just cross them all over to the opposite side until we used all of them. And the same thing on the other side there. Just use one at a time, working your way out to the side. And then in the end, again, just like before, make sure to just push them tight so we get a nice and even braid before then bringing them down and back into the braid or into the setup, just like that. And that's now one full round. So this is what you want to do to kind of get the separate braids down the middle with the beads in between. So you want to do this one more time before we then add in the first bead. So now that I've done those two rounds where you can start to see my individual braids on the side, it's split in there in the middle, then what I'm going to do is add the first bead. So first we need to add a single bead just to kind of get the graduation. So I need to release those two cords in the middle on the top side of the disc and then just separate them out as well. So just kind of get to the ends here. And then on the ends of this cord that I'm using, I've just singed the ends there with a lighter and then kind of made them into a needle. So that's a little tip. It's going to make it much easier to get through the beads. So I can do this because I'm using a synthetic cord, but if you're using a natural cord, you'll have to kind of stiffen the ends using, say, glue or nail polish or something. But I'm going to use them, and then first of all just take one cord, and I'm taking a 6mm bead first of all, so the small one, putting that onto one cord in one direction there, and then I'm going to take the other cord and then put it through the same hole but in the opposite direction. So this is why obviously we need to make sure that the hole in the bead, and all the beads in fact, they're large enough to take 2 lengths of this cord through, because then I have the cords going through, but basically now they're going to be crossing inside that bead. And then all I'm going to do is pull them all the way down, so pull the cords all the way through the bead, which then brings the bead down towards the braid, and then makes it sit right there in the middle. So you can see they're going to be crossing like that, and then what you want to make sure to do is pull it nice and tight, so the bead is going to sit right in between those braids, because what we don't want is any cord showing between the braids and the bead, so the sides there. So make sure you pull pretty tight, and then we can put the cords just straight out into the sides there, the slots on the side, like that. And now technically, like I said, those cords are crossing in the middle, like when we were doing just the one braid there, but that's just purely to add in the bead, and obviously hold it in place there in the middle. So that's now that bead added in. So just get in order there, and otherwise now you just want to repeat. So move the cords on the top and the bottom to the opposite sides in the exact same structure as we've done the whole time. And first of all, to complete this round here, because this is the round where we added in the bead, so I'm just going to finish this up like that, working my way one cord at a time out to the side until I've used all of them. And then on the side, release the side ones there and push against the bead, and that's also just a chance to kind of pull a little bit extra to make sure that between the bead and the braids there that the cord is nice and tight, so it's not showing, because that is obviously the cord that's going through the bead. So something like that. So that's now our very first bead added in, and it sits right there between those 2 individual braids that we started. So then we need to get our braid to the next point we want to add in beads. So to do that, we need to do the individual braids on the side again. So I'm going to take the left one out of those 2 middle ones on the top, bring it out to the left. So we need to make the separate braids again, and then the right one out to the right. And then otherwise you just continue moving the bottom and the top ones to the opposite sides. And then what you want to do now though as well is we need to start making different amounts of rows, you could say, or go arounds. So on this side here, let me just show you. This is then a new round, and I'm going to count this as the first one. So like this, all the way around. And then on this side again, we repeat. So far, we're going to be doing the same thing on both. Bring these down. Make sure to always push them tight, so we get as nice and even braids as possible. So this is one full round. Now to repeat, bring them out to their own side to where they're coming from. The bottom and the top ones need to swap sides again. And this is now the second round that I'm doing after we added in the bead. On the other side the same. You'll be able to see then that those braids in the middle, the individual ones on either side, are growing after the bead. The side one, bring that down, and the same on the other side. So this is 2 full rounds after the round where we added in the bead. But then what we need to do is continue on one of the sides. So I'm just going to make this, my right side here, the kind of underside of the necklace. So this braid's going to be a bit longer. So I have 2 rounds in total, so I'm going to leave the left side for now, so ignore that, and then just continue with the right side. Bring that out to the side there. It's the exact same technique, but we're just only doing it on the right side. That's one extra. Bring that down, and then another one again. So here I'm going to be doing 4 rounds on this right side as opposed to only 2 on the left one. So just bring it all the way, and then again the side one back in. And then what you will be able to see, if you look closely here, is the right one individual braid is going to be longer than the left one, because obviously we did a few more rounds. So that's now the position I have my braids in, where I want to add in my next beads. And the way that I'm going to do that is the exact same principle as the first one that we added in, but what's different this time is the amount of beads that we use. So again, I'm just releasing the top two middle cords and getting to the end, kind of just separating them out. And then, again, I have these singed. Then what we need to do is grab our beads, but now I'm going to be using both my 6mm and then the larger one as well. So both a small and a large one, because that's also how we help get the graduation in the necklace. Now what I'm going to do is we need to add both of these beads to one cord. So just make sure we put the small one towards the left and then the large one goes towards the right. So whichever cord you add these onto first, it doesn't matter at all. So I'm just adding it to the left cord. You could also do it to the right, but then you would just add the large one first. Bring them down the cord, then get the other one through the beads, but in that opposite direction. Just get that through as well. And that's where we then grab the ends of the cords and start to pull them down until the beads end up inside of the braid, or the two braids rather, on the sides. Get them all the way so they're going to sit perfectly just like that. And again, make sure you pull pretty nice and tight there so the beads are right close to the braids on the side. And these cords are now the ones that are automatically going straight out to the side, and again they're crossing inside those beads just to add them in. But now otherwise it's basically the exact same situation as when we added that first one in. We're ready to continue this next round because we've already done the ones that are going out to the side, and this is still the round where we've added in the beads. So I'm just going to be crossing the bottom and the top ones to the opposite sides, like that. The same thing on the other side here. So everything we do on one side is mirrored on the other side. Until we used all of them. And then we just need to bring in the side ones again. Again, make sure, so you tighten that a bit more, that we just double check that the beads are close to the braids on the inside there. So we just push them together. And then we have those two beads added in. You can slowly start to see it there. And how this is going to then work is we're going to have that first single bead is just the only one that we're going to do single, obviously on the other end as well. But that's just to kind of get the graduation in there. Otherwise, what we're going to do is then add these two beads every single time now in the same exact way that I've just showed you. And also we need to do the exact same amount of knots, or not knots rather, but rounds on the sides. So on this side I'm going to continue to do 2, and on this side I'm going to continue to do 4 in between every round where we add in the beads. So now I kept adding in my beads here and made those braids on the edges along the way. And then on the back here it looks like this. So you can see we get this curve in the piece. That's obviously going to be the mid part of the necklace. Now what I've ended up with is 9 of these double beads, because then where we've ended up now is the point where we need to make pretty much that single one again. So we need to finish in the same way that we started. So that means I've already made my rounds on the sides there the exact same as all the other times. Then now what we've got to do is again release the 2 middle ones on the top, and then we've got to add the single bead to that. So that means just adding that 6mm round, the same thing that I added as the very first one. Go through with one cord and then the other cord goes through the same hole there. but in the opposite direction. Let's get it all the way through. And then just pull it down. And then obviously what this is going to then do as well is actually pull the two braids on the side closer together. Just get untangled. Because we need them to get closer again so we can then also get to the point where we're going to make the other side of it. So just again pull these cords that you've gotten through the bead until the braids on the side sit right next to that bead there. So there we go, now added in that single bead again. And then we could just pick the disc back up, because then what we need to do is the part from the beginning that we made, where we basically started out making the initial braids, individual ones on the side. So make the same amount of rounds as we did just before that very first bead, because they are now going to go after the very last bead. Just make those rounds. Because once we've done those rounds there, we then reach the point where we need to collect the whole thing together again and make the single braid like we did right in the beginning, so on the one side. So all that is, again, you go back to the two middle ones, but instead of just making the individual braids, we make sure we need to cross over those two middle cords from the top, going from one side out to the opposite side. And then also what you just want to do is make sure to kind of pull at them a little bit, so we bring the two braids just a bit closer together, because obviously we want this, the whole braid on the side, to be nice and even all the way throughout and be just one full braid there. And otherwise you just continue. So now you want to make sure for the rest of this side to obviously do that crossover so it's one full braid instead of two individual ones. So just repeat this, make however long you need to make this length to be the same as the other side. So I now finished braiding the other side of the necklace as well. You can see underneath the disc I have my full braid. And then what we need to do now is take this securely off the disc to make sure the braid doesn't come undone. And you can just use the remaining lengths of the cord here to tie a knot. And then we'll need to be able to finish off the ends. And this is then what the finished necklace looks like. So you can see we have this midsection here with the beads where we created that curve as well because of how we made the braid. And while we were adding in the beads, and then all that's left to do, like I said, is finish off the ends of the braid here. So on either side, I'm just going to be using these ribbon ends, where I'm then going to attach my findings to that. So just finish them off. I already have a video that shows how to do that if you're unsure. So I'm going to put a link to that in the description box below. You can have a look there. But otherwise, finish off the ends, and then you'll have your finished necklace. So now I've finished off the ends there. Then the necklace looks like this. So you got the two braids as well. The same really, but the two different ends going up the sides, and then I finish it off then attach my clasp. So it's going to be nice and easy to wear. Then you have that middle section with those beads creating that curve as well. So that's what it looks like. So I really hope you enjoyed this tutorial, and thank you very much for watching.